Thanks. Have a seat.
This is intimidating.
Is it?
No, it's great.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Long Form Conversations, the podcast where we talk about long form improv, long form comedy, just comedy in general. I'm gonna be switching things up a little bit, but first of all, I want to introduce my guest. I gotta say, this is someone who is probably the most demanded guest I've had, and I haven't told you that yet. That's sincere.
It's me, the most demanded guest.
Whenever I tell people like, "Oh, hey, who should I get on the podcast, or who are you interested in hearing from?" This is the name that's come up multiple times.
Totally.
This is a person who does not have any title that they want to go by. This is just some guy I met and some really popular person in the improv scene. This is Dennis Curlett.
David, hello. Thanks for having me. Nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you as well. We'll get to your titles throughout the conversation.
Yes, good. Let's get to my titles.
Yeah. But forget the that. We were just sitting there and talking about our experiences, our backgrounds. We'll jump into that later on, but I first wanted to talk to you about the way that I met you, the way that I know you, which is through improv, not your official title.
Can we then talk about the 3 Alien films?
Yeah, and then we'll talk about the Alien films as well. First of all, I've seen you. You've been in the LA improv scene for years.
50 years.
50 years, yeah. You moved out here, didn't know what you're doing, and then Groundlings and UCB and all those places came.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh, now I get it."
Oh, what is it? Yes, absolutely.
I had to admit, I was always a little bit intimidated by you because you are a very, and
nice.
I was proven wrong. But my first impression of you was always, this guy's intense. Because the way that you improvise is always, you're very committed, very focused, and your characters are always just very intense, I would say.
Sure. After that, that's very nice of you to say. That's very nice of you to say.
I'm pleased to say that you are the opposite of that. That's what I was building at.
Yeah, that's where I get it out. I get it out on that stage because in real life, the opposite.
You work out all that aggression there. And then here, you're like the sweetest, gentlest person I ever met.
It's always wild to hear how other people view your improv.
Mm-hmm.
That's very nice of you to say. Should I throw up to you back? That's very nice of you to say. I will say, you've been around. I feel like I've known you've been around for a longer time but I didn't really start seeing you play until Ouija's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing you playing Ouija is like, oh, this guy is great. And then seeing you climb from Ouija's, that's the wrong way to put that. You've gotten a lot of stuff already, but also it will not surprise me when you get more. Is that a weird thing to say? I don't know.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that.
Sure.
But yeah, how I really got to know you was through your writing class. So you are another title that you have.
When did you take I'm just kidding.
This guy he has so many students, he forgets them all. But you're also another title you have is your screenwriter.
Yes, I am. David is not only an excellent improviser, but he's a great screenwriter too. And I'm always worried about, I don't want to say things that you don't want me to say on this. So I'm sure you can edit anything out you want, but like many people, David played down, this is my first real script that I'm writing. Like I went to school for this, but really I do a lot more sketch. And then he's fantastic at screenwriting. And then every week better and better and better. But he definitely, to me, played it down. Then it was like, oh, he was just playing it down. He's a great screenwriter. Got it. And you were great in the class. You were very supportive and helpful to everyone else. That was a very good group. So thank you for taking it. Thank you for being part of it. Hope you got something out of it too.
Thank you. I feel like
all of this out.
I feel we might be at an impasse because I'm trying every time I try to give you a compliment, you throw it back. I have a feeling.
And I feel like every time I give you a compliment, you throw it back.
That's absolutely right. So we might be complimenting each other in circles. But what I will say is, not to downplay it. I mean, I can see how it comes off that way, but truly, that was my first time writing a feature screenplay. I have written pilots before. I have written sketches before, so I'm not new to writing. I also, write a lot of things for work. But that was my first time telling, I think I mentioned like a long form story, to be able to tell a story longer than 30 pages, and your class is still helpful. You have a really guided way of helping people through it. It's very digestible. It's very like I don't know, like again, just as someone who's taken a lot of screenwriting classes, that was one that was just it clicked for me, and then I was able to like jump into it very well. But I appreciate you saying I did a good job.
Before you said everything you just said, I was going to say you're a natural, but you're not a natural. You've worked very hard to get to where you are. So maybe you're a natural, but also you've also done a lot of work. So
Yeah, I think that's the thing I love about improvisers is that we, as I meet people and as I'll talk to them on this podcast, you know, first of all, the beautiful thing about improv is that you can bring in like all like 30 years of your experience into it, or
totally.
however old you are,
30 years.
You're 30 years old, so you brought all 30 years of it into
And
it.
you're also 30 years old.
And we're both 30 years old. And that's all the experience we have. But, as people like start to get into acting, start into writing and all these other different type of things, character work, stand up, the beautiful thing is you can start to see them kind of like not unfurl or flower,
blossom.
Wow, this guy's a great writer. He knows all the words.
Whoa! We did that 3 times. We found on the third one. We had deleted the other 2.
Yeah. But people are like blossoming into like really great performers in other arts because they now know how to tap into all the things that they've built up over the years.
Absolutely agree. I will say, I don't want to go on a different path I will say that writing was always a thing that I was doing, but and improv was like the release, I found feature writing to be like this isolating thing that I had to do by myself in the corner of a room for months and months. And like improv was the creative with a group of people and of the moment. So it was a great release that way. But I did not know how much I did not know how much better is the wrong word. Improv helped a lot with writing and I didn't expect it to do that. And it absolutely did. And it absolutely helped me find my voice, which I thought I already had before I started improv. And then you do improv long enough and you're like, oh no, I'm drawn to this and doing this. And I wouldn't have found that without improv. So it's incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same?
Yeah, definitely. I think what you said about like finding your voice, I totally agree. Because I think, again, we're both 30 years old. You've lived 30 years. You live 30 years of just one voice.
Yeah.
You think that that's your only voice. And doing improv allowed me to find other points of views, other energies, other voices. So then now when I write, like, I'm not just writing 4 characters that are all just different versions of me.
A billion percent.
Mm-hmm.
Also, maybe it was like intrinsically in there, and it's going to sound super dumb to say, but just it's going to sound really dumb, but giving every character a game, like even side characters, like sure, intrinsically maybe I was doing that anyway, but like that just hammering home of like, yeah, make them give everyone an individual game, have them play their thing, heighten, like all that stuff is maybe intrinsically there, but improv allowed you to, in my brain, articulate and understand like, oh yeah, this makes sense.
And focus it.
Yes, 100%.
I totally agree. So, again, we'll talk about the plugs later, which I don't know if you want to, but that's a great class. People should definitely sign up for it. It's really a great experience and just really good environment. Again, I had all this time and all this experience writing, and I never did it. And that's what I think is really important, is just giving people a structure and a space to do so, which I think is ultimately what that class is best for.
That's very nice of you to say. I will say that I just tried to create a thing that if I was going to go through a class, what I would want.
Yeah.
And hopefully that translates.
Absolutely it did. Yeah. All right, let's talk about Alien 3.
Yeah.
Now we can finally talk movies.
Can we really do that?
Yeah.
Great.
We've been trying to, I know we're supposed to talk about improv, but we've been trying to connect on a movie. So that's one thing that I think most people in LA will have in common is our love of cinema.
I will say David is an amazing improviser. He's a great writer. But the thing that is like the thing that I feel like an odd connection to him, I apologize for sharing this, we don't want to shared. You go to a lot of movies and you post about the movies you're going to, and it very much taps into a younger Dennis thing of like, ooh, what are you seeing? What are we watching? Ooh, like love it. I try not, this is going to sound really bad. I try not to heart or comment on every movie you go to see on it. Be like, ooh, I'm like, don't freak him out. But truly, that's what I want to do every time I see you go to the movies. But you go to a lot of movies, which is cool, and I'm jealous. And you recently, will you give me your background on the 3 Alien films?
Yeah, so I grew up watching them on Sci-Fi Channel, on Showtime or whatever. So I would see them edited, I would see them out of order, I would just see them. My brother's a big horror movie fan, so I got to give him some props as well.
Older or younger?
Older. So a lot of times I would watch it like hiding behind him, or I'd sneak into his room and then I'd see a scary scene. I'd run out.
Sure.
So for me, like, it's always been accessible to me. I'd always ask him about it. So I knew all about the lore. I was like, okay, I got it. Xenomorphs, and they impregnate you. So I knew so much about them, but I just never saw them as a cinematic experience, if that makes sense. I had the toys. I had to play the games. I loved Aliens.
So when did you actually get to see them?
I didn't watch the first Alien until I was like 24, 25.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you immediately go from that to Aliens, or did you take a lot of time between? Yeah. And then when did you finally see Alien 3?
2 months ago.
That was the time you, so literally seeing it on your post, that was the first time you had seen Alien 3. So what did you think of Alien 3?
I didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit. Sorry if you're watching this, Mr. Fincher, but
Mr. Fincher, you don't like it either.
Yeah, you famously said that you felt handcuffed. So maybe you're okay with me, talking crap about this movie, but it was just it was not what I thought it was. Again, growing up, I knew it to be this cool world, and Ripley's this awesome character, hero, and it's just a story about triumph. And this is very much just like, it felt like a made for TV movie.
Have you ever listened to the good to talk about other podcasts on a podcast? You ever listen to any like the makings of Alien 3? It's like a fascinating, took forever. They had a million different drafts and versions and like almosts.
Yeah, I think that's another problem I have with watching old movies, or especially from like directors I like, because I always find myself trying to defend it. So immediately after I saw that, I went on a deep dive to learn more about Alien 3, because I was like, I like Fincher and I like Aliens. So whose fault is this? Yeah, why is this a bad experience? And I learned all about that, and it's a wild experience.
I only bring it up, and the reason I want to talk about, I consider Alien 3, I do quotes around it now, because I always say Alien 3 is the worst movie ever made, and it's just, to me, the worst movie ever made, because as a kid, Aliens was like the first movie that really hit, of like, we had the VHS of like taped off of ABC one night. We saw Aliens, and I was like, oh, this, and it got so into my system, watched that tape until it literally got destroyed. Aliens was my movie. Much later, I saw Alien, and I was like, they only have one alien to fight. Like, why can't they just beat this thing? But I love both Aliens and Alien. That being said, so as a kid,
you saw it out of order, and
saw it totally out of order, which is not the way to do it. But when Alien 3 was coming out, again, we're both 30, but I'm a little bit older than you.
Yeah.
When Alien 3 was coming out, I was like, oh my God, there's going to be another one. Yeah. Oh my God. And the original trailer was like, I remember the original was like, the bitch is back. And you're like, the bitch, Alien, the queen, somehow, what does that mean? And then in the trailers, you're watching the trailers and you're like, if you love Aliens, like literally you're just a kid playing with your pulse rifle, you're all the different characters, your Hicks, your Hudson, your Ripley. And then Alien 3 is coming out and you're like, oh my God, another one. This is going to be it. I cannot wait for this.
They even said that he was going to touch down on Earth.
Absolutely. And the bitch is back. And you're like, yeah. And then in retrospect, I remember watching the trailers and being like, because a lot of characters are not in those trailers from Aliens. And like, as a kid, you're like, no, I think I see them running. Or what is this?
Shave his head?
Oh, yeah.
Where's Newt?
And then literally, I'll never forget the crushing blow of 5 minutes into that movie. They take everything you love about Aliens, and over the opening credits, sorry, spoilers for 1992's 92, 91, 93.
And you're only spoiling like the first scene too.
They kill everyone that all the love you have for Aliens. And then they kill everyone off in the opening credits. They literally killed them off. And you're like, wait, why am I crying? And then the movie starts, and then you're like, oh, they're all dead. It's not that she's just on a mission on her own. You've killed them all. And then they want to make sure that they're saying fuck you to you. Is it okay to curse?
Yeah.
They want to make sure if you're not totally fucked, they want to fuck you as hard as they can by, not only do we kill them all, let's give Newt an autopsy scene. Let's have 20 minutes of them cutting Newt, the kid from Aliens that she spent the whole thing saving. Let's cut her open for a while. And you're like, fuck you. And then there's one alien and there's no weapons. And you're like, what is happening? And I will say, it's crazy because I love Fincher. He's one of my absolute favorites now. But watching Alien has so many new cool ideas. Aliens has so many new cool ideas, and you can literally feel when they've just run out of ideas.
It's like, yeah, like I think about that a lot with like sequels and with franchises, how like they expand the lore, and this one very purposefully shrinks it and minimizes. And again, that's why I felt like I don't know if it was budget cuts. I don't. If you had told me that movie is going to come out straight on sci-fi, I was like, oh, okay, I get it.
Absolutely.
That's what it felt like. It felt like, oh, we have one location.
Yeah.
You know,
Make it work.
we have a bunch of British actors for some reason, and yeah, we have Sigourney, which is great. All our money's going to Sigourney.
Absolutely.
So let's just make the best movie we can. I get that, but it was not Sharknado. It was. I didn't realize it was like a really big, you know, trilogy. Supposed to be a trilogy ender.
Trilogy ender, big summer movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Alien 3.
Yeah, Alien 3.
Improv.
All right, let's talk about improv. All right, well, that was us catching up.
Alien 3.
That was a conversation that's been bubbling for a few weeks. So I'm glad we finally got to.
I'm glad we got to share that.
Get it out, and we'll see how much I keep it and how much I edit out.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Wow, you look great for 30.
You look great for 20.
Yeah.
I don't know why I just made you 20 instead of 30.
Yeah. We're gonna go ahead and jump into our first segment now, which is gonna be Improvster Syndrome. So this is our opportunity to hear about your journey through improv. I want to hear about the ugly, the bad, the hard days.
You know what's crazy? I apologize. On the walk, I walked over because I live close enough. It was easier than just trying to drive on the walk over here. I'm not going to use their name. I ran into a person that I was on my first improv team with, who I haven't seen since before the pandemic. They were just on the street, and it was like we had like this catch up really fast on the street on the walk over. And I thought, what a karmically perfect thing of like, what are the odds? Then I felt like I was lying to her, and I was like, I'm going to be so late for this improv podcast. And it's like, feels like you're lying. I was like, goodbye. What is the actual question again? I apologize.
So this is really going to be open floor for you to talk about your improv journey, talk about your early days, how you came into it. And I want to hear about the struggles. I want to hear about the hardships.
I first found out about improv. I was a set PA, hanging out with a lot of assistants and a lot of like agent assistants, manager assistants, producer assistants. I was also though in a writing group, and a guy in the writing group was like, hey, my manager says taking UCB classes looks good on a resume, can help you get in rooms. And I was like, what is a UCB class? I knew of like Whose Line Is It Anyway, but I didn't know what long form improv was at all. I had been out here for like 5 years, so I feel like I wasted so much time of not knowing what this thing was. But he was like, will you take this class with me? And I was like, sure. So we both signed up for UCB 101. He ends up signing up. He waited too long. So I get into this class and he didn't get into it. I'm like, the thing I'm taking with you, you're not in. And then, so took this class. I was a kid, so you think I'm funny, I'll be great, improv, haha. And then you're like, this feels wrong and weird. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to pass the ball. I just remember seeing my first Herald though, like going to UCB and seeing my first Herald and just going, I don't fully understand this, but this is the thing that's missing from my life right now. Like whatever this is, whoa, like this is what I'm missing. A weird thing that happened at the first Herald I ever went to, the first Herald I ever saw was a team called Kid Grift and it was Bangarang were the two in that slot. And what I would find later is they're both great teams, but Bangarang was like an all-timer. Kid Grift was a very, very good team, but Bangarang was like an all-timer UCB Herald team. Kid Grift comes out on stage. I moved from Philadelphia to California, and I've been out here for 5 or 6 years. A kid who went to middle school with my baby brother, who was in the plays with him. I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in the UCB theater. I'm sitting down we're getting ready to see a Herald. Don't know what that is. And on the stage, these 8 people come out, and one of them is my brother's friend from middle school. I was like, what the hell is going on? And that like blew my mind, like a weird like karma connection thing. But seeing the Heralds for the first time, I was like, I want to do this. I was very lucky. I did my 101 through 401 all in the same year. It was like, again, knock them out. I was very lucky in that my 101 class, like 12 of the 16 people were like show addicts, where we had a big group thread and everyone went to every show, and it became like, who's going to this show? We all are. Who's going to Herald this week? We all are.
And you also went to the classes together?
101 to 201 to 301, we all absolutely took everything together.
Mhm.
And then 401, I got kind of splintered, but it was like addictive too, and kind of like competitive in that you didn't want to miss anything. So everyone was like, who's going to a show tonight? We're all going. And it was just became this like, ooh, fun. We're all growing and learning this thing. We all don't know what the hell we're doing, but like we have each other. So it would be the thing where we go to a Herald to be like 12 of us. And then we'd all go to Birds afterwards and be like, there's the person from the show. There's the person from the show. But we all have each other. So there's 12 of us just like circling around.
Yeah.
Who's going to have the guts to walk up and be like, hey, great show. You know what I mean? And it was a really great, you feel like you're in college again, or like you're discovering stuff again. It was an amazing time.
Yeah, that sounds like the ideal situation to be going through improv.
That was the one time in my life where I did have not the one time, but I was a writer's PA on a Netflix show. So I had I was doing like 60-hour weeks in like this weird environment. So it was tough, but it was like addictive as hell. So like just didn't want to miss. And I just remember when I had my first practice group, or like when the class would do like practices outside of it, I would sneak them into the office when like the writers were out, and like we'd use the space.
You'd practice at your,
and I would never ask. I would just be like, and we just sneak them in. But yeah, so I was very lucky.
That's dedication right there. I mean, to people, I mean, that's unhealthy. That's
bad.
That's
really
a drug
bad.
addict. That's you.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one's looking.
I remember the script coordinator came back, like it was like 2 minutes before. I was always the last one in the office, but there was like 2 minutes before people were going to show up. And the script coordinator came back and was like, what are you doing here? And she was like, oh, and she just like stopped by to grab something. And then she like started looking through like the snacks to see what snacks she wanted to bring home. And I was like, you gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be in so much trouble, and like, you gotta go. That was like fun. It was fun. It was fun too, because it wasn't any of the hierarchy stuff. It wasn't like no one was trying to get on a Herald team yet. It was like, you didn't have a hold of this thing. It was magic to you still. And it was like a new magic. We were all kind of doing it together.
So, you mentioned that, you were working like as like a writer's PA and stuff like that. So the original intention was to do writing.
It was always, I wanted to make my own, before I knew how anything worked in any way. I was like, I'm going to make my own movie. So it was always, I'm going to write my way to it.
So the question, I guess, is before you jumped into improv, then in the high school and in college, there wasn't any, was there sketch, or was there any comedy leanings, or was it always like you and a laptop?
Like I did plays in middle school and high school.
Okay.
But there was no improv. There was no comedy based thing. And then in college, did a lot of film stuff, did a lot of shooting stuff, and a lot of like writing stuff, but like dropped the performance part of it. And I think seeing the Heralds really sparked something back in of like, oh, I missed the performance angle of it too. So kind of just woke it up.
And was it always interesting comedy, or was it like more drama?
I will always say I come from a really big family, and we were pretty poor growing up. So my defense against getting my face kicked in every day was a sense of humor. Like, you had to be the funny kid, because otherwise they were just going to pound you. So it was always comedy. It was always, it's funny, I write some drama stuff, but comedy was always my lean.
So for you, you probably took to it very well, would you say?
I thought it'd be faster. I thought it would be like I was always kind of the same in terms of like, haha, joke. It took a while to get my head around the UCB style. But then around 301 is when it clicked again of like, oh no, I am funny, but now I understand this, and now I can kind of use this. So yeah, it felt the math of it from UCB felt natural to me.
Yeah, the math of it. Yeah. So I would ask, after this point, or at this point, sounds like you have a lot of different practice groups. If it's a team, a group of people that are really committed, how much time would you say improv occupied your life?
It became everything. It became too much. Like, I feel like, I always like to say everyone, but who knows? I feel like a lot of people have like the year where at least the year where they lose their mind to improv, where it's like, I don't have this yet, but I'm starting to get it. So I'm going to be on a million teams. I'm going to take all the classes. I'm going to have all the practice groups. I'm going to do shows as much as I possibly can. Just trying to like, oh, I'm getting this. I'm getting better at this. I'm actually controlling this, versus just like terrified of it. So yeah, after the first year, it became like, I started off with one practice group that was like very regular, which was incredibly helpful. And then it became just like, there was a point where I was in like 3 or 4 practice groups, had like 15 like indie teams, was playing 2 times every night. It was everything. Um, yeah, yes. And then it was also the thing of, then you get good enough, or you think good enough where you're like, maybe Harold now, maybe all of a sudden now this is a thing. And then you're going after that super hard. I lucked out in that. I super lucked out a million different ways, but I lucked out in that at the same time, the Harold bug got me in terms of like, I'm going to get on one of these teams. I also lucked into Funk Shuffle, which is like the team that I feel like really helped me find my voice. And then also like when all the drama of Harold stuff and all like the fighting and like trying to climb of Harold stuff was happening, Funk Shuffle was like oxygen, was like oh yeah, that's right. I love improv. I forgot. So I just lucked out in that. At the same time, I was trying to climb the UCB Harold ladder. I was also really finding what truly I now feel is my voice with this other team over here. I just got really lucky in that both of those things were happening at the same time.
Let's actually talk about that. First of all, I want to ask, I've heard so many different things. I also want to ask you, what was the ecosystem like at this time? Because obviously we have UCB, like you mentioned, Harold, but
we're coming to classes in horses. There was there was no electricity. It was all candles.
What was the indie scene like? Where were the performance opportunities? What were some of the big shows?
What was cool is right when I first started, it was like the tail end of the first generation. So there was only like 2 or 3 indie shows, period, just when I started. But we weren't playing at all. So it was like you'd go to those 3 indie shows, and they were at like 3 crazy, strange locations all over Hollywood. You had to find like a door down an alleyway and go in. It was very weird and very like, and it was super intimidating. And if you got a show there, you waited months and months to get a show. And then you did one show, and it was like the buildup to that was like terrifying and the most important thing ever. And right around the same time I was coming into my own in terms of like improv and teams is when the first clubhouse opened. First clubhouse opened, and all of a sudden it took all those shows and put them into one space. So now there was one place you could go every night, and there was multiple shows every night in one location. And it was like the first time that had happened that I had seen. All of a sudden it became, if you want to see improv every night and not just go to UCB and like see people, you can go here. And that became a thing. I went through a breakup, and all of a sudden it was like, I'm just going to go. Before I was playing a lot, I was just going and watching a shit ton of shows at UCB and at the clubhouse. And like, at first you don't know anyone. And then if you go there enough, you know everyone. But it became like, you felt I'd get done work, I'd come there and just do that. But that was the ecosystem. And classes were like all over. It's weird because it feels a little bit like it is now a little bit, but classes were all over town. So it felt kind of punk rock. And then the indie shows were all over town. And then the first clubhouse happened, and we were like, wow, amazing. And then about a year later, UCB Sunset opened, and it was like, wow, amazing. And now we all go to class in the same place, and there's like multiple stages. And like improv for a couple of years blew up and blew up and blew up and blew up. And then started shrinking again. But I was in there right in the couple of years where it was like, it's still blowing up, but like in different ways now. But I was there at the time when UCB was, the clubhouse first showed up and UCB was blowing up in LA.
Would you say that it satiated your hunger, your thirst for it? Because I mean, I guess the interesting thing about that time versus now is like, now if you want more, you got to kind of wait for it. You kind of have to like pace yourself. But if you at that time, it seems like if you wanted more, like there was more to be had, right?
Yes, there was. Yeah, there was just you could.
Because like you mentioned, like performing every night for like 2 shows every night. I've heard that from a lot of folks around this time where it was just like,
oh no, absolutely, it was
all you can eat buffet of performing.
And it was absolutely, and there was so much at the same places too, where it was like, it wasn't even at the time the clubhouse only had one theater, so it was like you weren't even leaving the thing. It was like you're sitting there, you're getting done, you're going to the next one that's in the same place. So you're like going again and again and again. And then it's like when UCB Sunset opened, it was like there's all the Inner Sanctum shows, and there's people getting shows up at like, it used to be a crazy, they're doing such a better job at it now, but it used to be you could not play at Franklin unless you were on a Herald team, or it was like some kind of a class show or some kind of weird one-off thing, but was very rare. And then UCB Sunset opened, And all of a sudden you could get up at Sunset, you get up at Inner Sanctum, you get up more at Franklin. And it was like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And all of a sudden you had a million shows. And then Clubhouse moved to a place where there were two, that what it is now, there are two stages. So then it became, I'm playing downstairs, I'm playing upstairs, I'm playing at UCB Sunset, I'm playing over at the Inner Sanctum. And it was literally, there was a good year or two where, yeah, you're playing every night, multiple times a night. And every once in a while you get a day off. You're like, oh yeah, right. I forgot what it feels like to have a night off. Cool. But that was all at the time when you don't have a handle on it yet. You're not sure what you are, what you can be. So it's still, everything felt like growth and exciting.
Yeah. And what was like the population like? Cause like, again, I've heard it from you, I've heard it from other folks. So like, you're probably running the same like people over and over again. You probably see people like 4 or 5 days in a row.
100%. And you're on, you absolutely, it's this big, small community, right? So it's like 500 people, but it's like you see the same 100 people constantly and they're all your best friends and you're all on different combination teams with each other. And it's like, oh, my friend's playing on this team right over here right now. And it's like, yeah, you go to everyone's birthday party and everyone's hanging out at the bar afterwards. And it feels like getting into the actual UCB is similar in its own way. But at that time, even the indie scene was like it is now. Like, I guess yes, there's 100 people. We all know each other. We're all on a million teams together. We're all going to everyone's birthday. We're going to everyone's bar and hanging out. It was like, you're in college again. You have 100 friends. You're all doing this thing. You have this shared language. It's all you really talk about. Like you really don't get to know them more than that, but you're constantly talking about the show you just had or the set you just did, or oh, I saw you play with this person, or what's that class like? Or what is this? And constantly.
Yeah. You know, for someone who didn't have that sounds very cool. But I think also now that I have a grasp of like what it's like now in this present day and age, that also sounds like it could be a little bit overwhelming. Like it could take over.
Oh, it's nuts.
Your life.
That's probably the wrong way to put it, but it was, in retrospect.
Yeah.
It's like a mania. It's like, what do you like? I definitely feel like it was necessary and I'm glad I did it and like love improv forever. But like, yeah, you lose the drive of everything else gets lost to this new thing you're trying to master. So it's like, my focus all the time was writing new scripts. That kind of didn't go away, but it was like not the priority anymore. It was like, I'm getting on a Herald team. I'm going to be great at improv for a couple of years, which in retrospect is crazy. How do you feel the environment is now? Like how often, if you want to, like, I feel like we just have taken over like here's the thing. I feel like an old man saying this, but like, I don't know what it is 100% right now in terms of how people feel.
I think I'm even getting to that point where it's getting a little bit, you know, above my head, above my, but like, what it feels like the difficulty is that it's great that there's so many different schools and different performance opportunities and different styles, but because of those splinterings of philosophy and of communities, like there was a time where I was also like performing every day of the week, but the overlap would be like almost, I was the overlap, you know what I mean?
That's cool.
And it is cool, but it was also like, you know, I wouldn't say it's like lonely. I would say it's like, it's like you have 4 friend groups and you see all 4 different friend groups differently. And that, you know, and that can be great in its own right. But for me, I was just like, it would be nice to have the consistency. I think that's what really helps build relationships and builds community, is seeing the same folks. And you don't have to see everybody all the time, but to have familiar faces.
That makes sense.
And to have like dialogues and conversations that build upon each other.
That makes sense.
And obviously and then when you get to become on teams with folks, that's when it's like, oh yeah, that's the good stuff right here. And I'm just curious if maybe that's what the scene was like. It was kind of like one big team or one big group.
It felt like that. It felt like a splinter of it, and everybody was on teams with each other all over. So it felt like that.
And like, if you want to talk to someone like, hey, you're on a team with that person, introduce me. It'll be easier.
100%. I also say, I feel like the shelf life of every generation, there are people who outlast the shelf life 100%, but usually it's like 3 years of group comes in, super into improv. You see them all the time. They're on every team, and then a majority fade away, which makes sense. It's like they come in, get burned out, on to the next. So if you stay long enough, if you want to stay long enough, you gotta jump back into a new group, which is always like, you feel like you've already done the work and you have that giant group of 100 people. Then they all start going away and a new group comes up and you're like, what is going on right now?
Yeah.
And it's either you do it again you do the let me be on a million teams, know a million people, or you say I don't know these people anymore and you fade away, which is not no judgment on either, but it's like it is the weirdest thing of the first time it happens, it's the weirdest of all these people that I see every day, where are they going? They're all disappearing. And it's like you either don't know anyone anymore or you start hitting it again.
Mhm.
Um,
And I guess, yeah, like just in my experience, it just feel like it's kind of like there is no like mass exodus or mass influx. It's like a never ending treadmill of new people coming in and out, you know?
absolutely agree. I'll say everybody's different. Like people leave for different reasons, but a lot of it, not a lot of it, a lot of times people get burned out by like the auditioning for stuff and not getting it and they start fading away. And that's like a thing. Other people, it's like, hey, I had fun doing this. I can't do this every night. I get married. I got a new job. I gotta like, this is my fun collegey time, but I gotta stop doing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of like, people coming and going, I do want to ask about Funk Shuffle. I wanted to ask how that team got formed because what's it been now? It's been like 10 years.
It's been like 10 years.
So you guys met when you were like 14 years old?
14 years old. Michael was 14 years old.
Yeah.
That team was Clubhouse One. There every night you're at the clubhouse. Danny Symbol was on Funk Shuffle, was in my 201, and then he was on my first practice and performance team called Secrets, which had so many great people on it. But the
So he was one of the guys sneaking into your Netflix writing room.
That's right. I don't know if I ever told them that they were being snuck in either. I was just like, I got a space. Yes, he was one of those. But we had a show that night. I forget who we were playing with. We had a show that night, but Michael Gardner, who's just considerably younger than us, but Michael Gardner, who's also on Funk Shuffle, was always just like at the clubhouse, just like hanging out. I think he was in college at the time and lived close. So he would just like come to the clubhouse and like hang out. And like everyone was just kind of talking after a show. And he came up and he goes, hey, great show. Do you guys want to go get a beer? You want to get a drink? And it was like, that's all we did was do shows and get drinks, which is really unhealthy when you think about it. But we went and got a drink with Michael, and it was the time of your life, the time of the thing where any group combination that you had fun with, you're like, this should be a team, huh? And it's like, so it was me, Danny, and Lindsey Frank was on Funk Shuffle at the time. Me, Danny, and Lindsey Frank were all very close, good friends. Michael Gardner was a person we knew, and he was like, let's get a drink. And we had fun just hanging out, getting a drink. And then I forget who even said, this should be a team. Ha ha, yeah. And it was like one of 100 teams you make doing that. But there was just something different about the mix, like, which you just luck out in terms of like, oh, this one's different. And then it just lasted. It grew and grew and grew. And I feel like we all found our own voice in it. It just held on, which is weird, but
yeah. So it was like a numbers game, huh? That was like 1 in 100.
you don't know. And you don't know what is it wasn't like, oh man, I'm really scratching. I really want to meet a team that's super physical and weird and tries stuff all the time. Are you guys game for that? It was like, hey, we're just gonna be another team. And it just started, we lucked out in terms of, it was a weird combination. And then we lucked out in terms of the coach we got, and just, I don't know, just sparked something else. Like we had the initial spark of improv, which is like, ooh, what is this? And then the spark of, oh, this is different. How do we keep going that way? I think we just like to, everyone, this is going to sound real dumb. We all like to grow. So like whatever makes you feel like you're growing or like expanding, you're drawn to it. That's just what improv and then what Funk Shuffle felt like.
That's great. And I think also back when we were younger, we're still young, but when we were younger,
we're young.
I think that there's like more enthusiasm for it. I think as you get older, like you mentioned, all those things happen with life, where it is just like, how much time really do I want to dedicate to this, artistic pursuit or this hobby? And then that kind of really settles in. Cause like, I think, we're not that old yet, but we're getting to the age where we're all very good at managing our time and our expectations of how much we want to invest into things.
Completely agree. And I don't know if you feel this way, but I still love improv. I think improv's great. So it's still an excellent release in terms of, I'm not a good person to me, if I don't have a shared activity, it's hard for me to maintain friendships. So like improv is a great thing for maintaining friendships, as like we'll do a show and then we'll hang out after, versus like, let's catch up and get a meal. Let's catch up and get a coffee. So it's great for social stuff that way for me. And then just the release of, again, just like sitting in a corner writing all day, going out and doing something that you get an immediate response from, feels great still.
Actually, did you want to ask about that? Because that's something that I think has changed quite a bit. I think the pandemic changed a lot of the culture of like hanging out and going to see shows. before, back when it was a bit of a smaller scene, that was a thing that was a regular occurrence. You do your shows, then we'd all go get drinks afterwards. I feel like that's kind of going away, and that could just be me, and that just could be my groups. But I'm curious to hear what it was like back in the day. Back when everybody was just turned 21 and they're so excited to go to bars.
I agree with you. I never put it to the pandemic, but it's probably right. But no, it was like almost too loose. It was, yeah, absolutely. It was just like, we're going to do a show. We're going to go hang out after.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel, you can luck out and still find groups that like want to socialize a bit. Like, but yeah, it is not as expected as it was before, I guess.
Yeah. And I think that, for me, that's always been my like philosophy or my approach. Because I agree, having a shared interest or a shared hobby gets you together, but you're never going to blossom as friend. Thanks for introducing me to that word. That word's come up a lot now.
You bet.
That relationship won't blossom until you take it outside of that one thing, right?
Completely agree.
So if you're only seeing each other at shows and practices, that's one level, one degree of a relationship. But to like get to the next level, but wait till you get dinner together. Wait till you go see a movie together.
Absolutely.
Wait till you see a baseball game together.
Absolutely.
One last thing I do want to ask about then is the grind of Harold. I know you went through that grinder yourself. However much you wanted to talk about it, I wanted to kind of see how you feel about it.
I feel very lucky. I'm not so far removed. Again, 30 years old, a lot of life, but
so much more life to live.
So much more life to live. I feel very fortunate in that I've had the opportunity to get to experience all these things. So I know what it feels like, and I will always have that. So I was on the first generation mess hall team. Like the first time they did mess hall teams, I was on one of those when no one was like, what is this? And then I got on Harold. I was on another mess hall team. I'm glad that I had the opportunity to do that and that I've had that experience. I know what that is. And it is truly a grind. It is truly it's an amazing feeling playing at Franklin to a packed house. It's like oxygen. It's like, 130 people laughing in a contained space at a joke that's okay. Like, please, this every night. But it is also the thing of, I'm sure everyone has always said this, you're constantly like, have we done enough as a team? Am I doing enough as a performer? I'm stressed. Did this person do enough? Did this team do better than us? Are we getting cut? Are we the best? Or what's going on? It's super cool. It's a great feeling. The weird high of doing a show at Franklin, going to Birds and having someone come and go, you guys were on that team, is like the weirdest. It's great experience. It's really neat. It's also incredibly anxiety inducing. And like the thing that kills me the most is people who will get on Harold, who I love as performers, and then they'll do it and they get taken off Harold and then they just fade away because they're like, now what do I do? That always makes me sad. But I'm grateful to have had the experiences. I will say, as much as it's a high to play at Franklin, it was never my favorite improv or like the improv I want to do. I feel like in retrospect, having a little bit of time away, like a little bit of room to think about it, like I feel like I played their game. Like I knew what I needed to do to get on a Harold team. So I did what they wanted and got on that way. And then I feel like I was blossoming on Funk Shuffle and really finding out who I was as an improviser. So the thing that I got on as, I felt like it was a fake for what I was like presenting as, I am a robot. I will always have the game. I will maneuver things. But really what I wanted to do was fuck with things and break things and try and put people in uncomfortable situations and see how they reacted to it. So it was an interesting time. I'm glad I had it. I wish I hadn't focused so much and cared so much and made it such an important thing for so long, but it's great if you can get it, and more power to anyone who gets on, and like, it's great feeling, all that stuff, et cetera, et cetera. Is that okay? Is that a
yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, just to be able to like share that experience, I think is really helpful for anybody who even wants to consider embarking on it,
Hell yeah. Can I say one more thing about improv actually?
Yeah.
The best practice, I've had a million wonderful coaches and a million like breakthrough moments. The best practice or the best thing that ever got asked for me to do or implement it was Funk Shuffle's coach, Matthew Bryan Cohen, early on could tell the Funk Shuffle was a little weird and we were like a little like trying stuff. We had like a 30-minute show. And back then, like, I'm sure right now it's the same thing, but like, wow, we get all this time in an indie show, this much time. And he said, for this show, I want you to make the audience hate you. And we were like, no, we want to do good and get laughs. And he goes, no, he goes, for this show, fuck the audience. And we had a whole show where the point was, we're just going to do whatever we want to do. And it was the most eye-opening thing. It was the first time we did so many things we've never done before. And like, but getting what you were speaking to of feeling the success of that and realizing what he was trying to get us to do and being like, oh, there's all these other things in here. And now we want to try everything else was really important and very helpful.
Great. All right. Well, thanks so much for walking us through that improv journey.
Thank you for walking me through that journey.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and jump into our next segment now. We are going to be talking about our topic of the week. And the topic that you had chosen is team sizes.
This is not the way you want to start this. What do you feel about team sizes?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked that because might be a little crazy. Let me know how you feel about this. I'm trying to bring more structure into these topics. How would you like to go when we talk about team sizes of 2, team sizes of 3, of 4, 5, 6, and down the line?
We can do that.
Yeah.
Do you want to start with a general thesis on what you feel about team sizes in general?
Or yes, do you want to? Sure.
Okay.
I think overall, and this is something that I will say as we go through the different numbers, your team, early on when I first started improv, they would chalk all the different teams with like as many students as they can.
Sure.
I started doing short form. I think our sizes were like 12, 14 people. And the idea behind that was always, or what I was told, the idea behind that was always, if you have more people in the back line, there's no pressure because the odds of one of the 14 of you having a joke is like over 100%. So we're good to go. As you pair away, as people miss the grad show or people miss practice, whatever, you may feel a bit more pressure. So having a smaller team, you might feel more pressure to like have to think of something. But conversely, I think over time, as you get more experience, you feel more comfortable in your own skin, you are going to find that bigger team sizes, you get less time to step out of share the spotlight for other folks. And then, you don't feel so bad about, oh, there's only like 3 or 4 of us. That's okay. Not worried about me or you having a good idea because now I can make any idea work. We can even come up with bad ideas and we can make it work. So that's like my overall arching thesis about team sizes.
Can I ask you, and again, you're just like, I want to do structure. I'm like, let me just ask you a bunch of random questions. Do you have an ideal size team that you like to play on? And do you have an ideal size team you like to watch?
Yeah. Oh, really good question. In terms of playing on a team, I'd like to have 5 or 6. I think 6 just as backup in case one person can't make it or hits traffic.
Sure.
So having 5 people is great. I think that's like the perfect number to do a montage really, you can do so many forms with a team of 5, which is also another factor is what forms you can do. But as far as watching, man, I think like 2 and 3, as I mature as a viewer, as like I adopt my own taste, watching 2 or 3 people just who really get each other and really on the same page is like where you get to see like true genius, true poetry come out.
I know it's crazy. I think I completely agree with you on both sides of that.
On both sides.
And my only additional caveat is the only other thing that I really, really love is if there is like a giant 9 to 12 person team, like that always brings me joy to watch, whether they be a younger team that everyone came and it's like, there's 9 of us and we're all playing and you're like, but I love, when there's so many that it makes no sense, where it's like, oh, 12 people on a stage. This is chaos. Yeah. I can't wait to see what this is.
Yeah.
And that can get me too.
I think that there's like definitely value in that. I'm thinking back about like, my first like grad shows and used to be 101, I think what's it called? An Armando, right? I think the 101 is a Armando.
I think so.
And depending on how the class is cut up, they will cut it up funnily because it's 16. And if you can get 8 and 8, that's great. But I think we had, it was like the weirdest number. I think it was like 9 or 8 or 10. So it was just like, let's just get all 10 of you to do 2 halves rather than cutting you in half, you know? What I will say, and I think this is also part of it, is just like, I remember at the time thinking like, well, this isn't my best improv and this isn't how improv is supposed to be like, because it's very chaotic. But now I'm trying to embrace like, well, yeah, but that's your 101 show. It's not supposed to be your best improv. It's not supposed to be, structured or good. It's supposed to be fun and energetic and getting you out of your shell and not so afraid and not so shy.
I agree with all of that. There was, in addition to that,
Mhm.
there was what you said before about when you're younger in improv and you're like, I need as many people there as possible because
Mhm.
you get the feeling of I don't want to get off the back line. I don't know. Someone's got to go. Someone please go. So you need as many people as possible. I remember this isn't helpful in any way, but there was a team I was on where enough people said yes to playing that there was like 16 of us. It was like a crazy thing. So what we decided to do was all sound and movement. So it became this goofy thing of 16 people doing sound and movement, which
Mhm.
was like bliss in how stupid and how big it was.
Yeah.
And when there's like a big team that will do a weird thing too, is also like, ha 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 ha, fun.
Yeah, like I think that's something that I think I always forget and I always miss. And it's I don't know I miss it until I do it again. It's like I used to think like, oh, I can't do short form again. And I did short form again recently, a couple months ago. And I was like, oh, this is so fun.
Absolutely. Now let's do the numbers.
All right, let's do the numbers. All right, let's just start off. Team of one, too much, too hard. That's I'm gonna do a standard routine. What's going on?
A lot of people have I don't disagree. I like people trying to do it once or twice just to see how they feel.
Mhm.
But I forget who said it, but improv is like you're building something together. So one person doing it, it's like, what is this?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so agree.
If you can pull it off, though, more power to you. That's amazing.
Funk Shuffle used to do a show called the Spotlight Herald, where
Mhm.
every beat was a one person scene.
Mhm.
So one person doing the first beat, one person doing the second beat, and it was neat to watch people try and do it and what they would do and how they would expand. Uh, Alex Fernie was the only person I've ever seen do a tag run as a one person. He would tag himself and then do that. It was
Yeah.
very, very funny.
Yeah. That is wow. That is great. If you can somehow get your brain to work for like multiple voices at the same time, good for you.
Have you ever seen Monica Smith do a
I
one
have.
person Herald?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's like again, like that's like an exception, not the rule of like,
absolutely.
wow, if you can, if you know, if you can autopilot the scene and then
Absolutely.
think of new games,
Absolutely.
like
And
that's
retain.
impressive. But
Absolutely.
that should I don't think that should be the standard. If you can't do it by yourself, like don't feel bad.
Agree.
All right, let's go now. Double it with two.
Whoa. What do you feel about two?
I think two is great, but I think two is it's got to be that person that you know very well, and you got to have a lot of trust. And I think my favorite thing about like both watching and seeing improv is I actually love the quieter moments, you know. And I think that that's the thing is like the biggest thing about two prov is patience and trust and maybe just getting away from it, you know.
Love that. And you know, you have time. So that's why you're like, it's like we only have each other.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the first time you did a two prov set?
Yeah.
Were you terrified or you're like, okay, cool, a two prov set?
Um, I remember. I think at the time that I did it, I was already watching a lot of it, so I kind of knew some of the like quote unquote like tricks, you know. And I didn't want to pressure myself to do too many of those. When I say tricks, I mean things um kind of breaking character to scene painter, kind of walking on as a third character and having one person play two.
Sure.
Things like that, like some of the more like meta moves. Um, I remember seeing that, so I knew that that was always in my back pocket. So if I knew if I was like, man, we need a customer to walk into the shop,
I can do that.
I knew I could do that. I didn't feel pressure to do it, so I think that was really nice.
That's great.
How about you? What remember your first time doing two prof?
Yeah, I just remember it scared the shit out of me the first time.
Yeah.
It was like, and like all your friends, because you're still young enough that all your friends like, you're doing a two prov set and they come to watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had the benefit of doing this like way. I was like already 4 or 5 years into improv before I did my first two prof set.
Sure.
But I would also say, yeah, like about like I don't know if I'm gonna keep it or cut it in, but early in the episode we talked about like drama and how like a lot of dramatic performances is like patience, and it's like the audience is hooked in. I think that's one of the beautiful things about doing a two-person scene.
Absolutely.
Everyone's locked in on every move that you're doing. So there's no pressure to be like, let me get up the next game move. You can just like, if, you know, if you're in a cafe, sit in the cafe.
Yeah.
La Chat Noir. Is that French?
Oh, let me check. Is that French?
Yeah.
You pulled it out. You pulled it out.
We they come back.
Ooh.
Okay, Le
Oh,
Chat
okay.
Noir.
Okay. You want to go somewhere else?
No, I like this place.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, anyways, like I love that like that could work and like yeah, I guess there was also this like pressure of like no one's gonna laugh. and that's fine, you know. Or how about this? No one's gonna laugh until I want them to laugh, right?
Absolutely.
Because like that move, if people laugh, I'm like, what are you doing, man?
It-
That was not a move to laugh.
there's also the feeling of you're just in it with each other. It's like that you only have each other. You will not be going to the back line. You're all in this.
Yeah. And I guess like the last thing I have to say about like G-Prov, you know, like I don't know how else to say this, but like edit. It's okay to edit.
I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to agree. So many two probs just turn into like
Mono scene.
mono scenes, which is
Yeah.
totally great if that's what's working. But yes, you can edit. You can still do all the things of improv.
Yeah. Some of the best G-Prov sets, they edit like every minute.
I love
So
that.
how about that?
Fun.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do that, but that's an option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. 3 people.
Th-
Improv.
Three's maybe my favorite to play.
Yeah.
Because it's which we've said
Funk shuffle.
it's and funk shuffle. It's enough space that you can all be in everything,
Mhm.
but you don't have to be. And there can be like a 2-person and an agent of chaos or someone moving the things around. On 3 is just a great number.
Yeah.
What do you feel about 3?
I agree. I think 3 is, if we're using like just like traditional language of like a voice of reason, a unusual person, and then a support. Like you have that triangle now, so you have all 3 legs of the tripod, like
It's a great way
steady.
to look at it.
People kind of know exactly what they need to do, and yeah, you can do pretty much anything with 3 at that point. Anything that you would do with a team of 8, you could do with 3.
Absolutely. And it's still the thing of you guys are all in it together.
Mhm.
Because even if you're on the back line, it's on you you need to get back in there. So you have to be engaged.
Right.
And also the thing that you were saying earlier about like, hey, it's okay to edit. Yeah, there's still someone who, if the 2 people in are losing their minds, there's still an outside force being like, time to edit this, time to move this.
Yeah.
It's just a nice mix.
Cut to a French cafe.
What?
Chat Noir.
Oh, I'm not sure. Let me ask.
Yeah, like one thing that I found that I really like about doing 3POV is at any time anybody can kind of take control, which I also think is really lovely, and they know that the spotlight's on them. So if the scenes are going too quick and there's so much rapid fire, one person can make the decision to be like, this one's gonna be slow. All to do is sit back and relax and let the scene like breathe a little bit. And vice versa. Things are getting too slow, they can really speed it up with a couple of support moves.
Totally agree.
Well, how about this? Like you can also have an identity with 3 as a team.
Absolutely. I didn't fully understand the convoy was doing a slacker.
Mhm.
Like I just thought it was the convoy. Like, and then later on you realize, oh, it's just a slacker. They're moving crazy fast and they're doing a slacker.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I always think of convoy.
Yeah, I think 3, like again, as an observer, seeing some great teams really do it. The other thing I really like is you find that team identity so quick.
Absolutely.
With 3, it's like, yeah, we're all 3 of us in the same page. There's no 5th or 6th person saying, I don't know, I think we should do more dramatic stuff. Between the 3 of you,
You're out.
Yeah, great. Now it's down to 3.
Now we're 3.
All right. Gonna shake things up now with 4.
Here's what I'll say. Do you have strong opinions from 4 to
Wow, this is really smart.
up until we get to 8? I don't have another strong, like any
variances between 4 and 8.
I like a 5. I will say, do you have a strong opinion somewhere in there or something you feel from 4 before you get to 4 to 7? 4, 5, 6, 7.
I will say this. I will just say that like 4 is not enough to do. And that's sorry. Anybody can do anything you want. You can reach for the stars.
Reach for the stars.
4 is really hard to do. Pretty flowers. It's really hard to do.
That's great. Great points.
It's great for a mono scene, I would say, and then vice versa. Like I think 6 is too much for a mono scene.
It's so funny. I wasn't even thinking of the forms.
Yeah,
that's great.
But that's yeah. Other than that, other than just like literal bodies and literal like staging, yeah, I think the vibe of being on a team of 4 versus being a team of 7, pretty much the same.
I agree with that. I will say, I think we'll get to it when we hit 8, but I saw, cause I have not strong opinions, but definitely feelings on 8-person heralds, but we're not there yet, but I saw a team they just had people missing. So they did a 5-person herald, and I was delighted by their 5-person herald because it was a little more chaotic, but you could tell they were less precious, and everybody was constantly in it because they were just missing pieces.
Yeah.
And it felt great. It felt, I just loved it. And I thought to myself, I always thought 6 was the perfect number for a Herald, because it means everyone's in everything and you got to work together for the group games. Everyone gets into a main beat, and then but then seeing 5 was really like, ooh, maybe this, because it literally, everyone just had to be on their toes the whole time.
Yeah. And I remember we did, I did a festival one time with 4 folks. This was in Conejo, really big theater, like a traditional, like musical theater size theater. And if there was a lot of pressure for the 4 of us to fill up the stage, I remember that. And I think that is one of the things I think is one other thing I will say about like varying between like 4 to 6, because 4 people, you break up the stage into like quarters versus breaking up into sixths. There's a lot of space that you can cover. So I remember like we kept on having to do scenes like a tour group, like giving a tour to factories, like welcome everybody. So it just gave us an excuse to walk from one end of the stage to the other.
Smart.
Yeah. And also, like, I was thinking about like support moves. If they're on this side of the stage and you're on this side of the wing, being able to walk over the tag in or whatever it's just, there's a little bit more hustle into it. So I think that's the only other thing I would say about
the moment
variety.
Like,
yeah. Cut to like you're just a little bit more on your toes.
Yeah, that's great. I agree with that totally.
Yeah. All right. So we're up to 8 now. Then, so here's the.
What do you think about Heralds? What do you think about 8-person Heralds?
I think I would agree that it's too many. I think that I mean, not to say that can't be good, but there is also
they can be great.
The thing I really don't like about having 8 people on a Herald is the expectation of order and structure. So if for instance we both do the 3 scenes, there's 6 of us that did the 3 core scenes, then we're looking at 7 and 8 to initiate the group game. And if they want to, great, but if they didn't want to, now there's pressure to do so. And then conversely, like if there's not enough people, what I like about that is like anybody can initiate the group game, because like we all like you mentioned with 6 people, we all got to do it in a base scene. So if you have a really good premise, come out and do it.
Oh yeah.
But if you don't feel pressure.
With I completely agree with all that. When it was 5, what was neat too was literally when it was the 3rd core scene and everyone had gone already, you saw them literally all look at each other like, can't do a second core scene. And then someone jumped out, and then all of a sudden they got a little, not confused, but like it became a little chaotic, because it was like trying to remember who was what character from which one, but that was delightful. And they were all kind of in it together.
Yeah. And that's something I do like about having smaller teams too, I guess. And this isn't just exclusive to the Herald, but for any form, whenever I am on a smaller team, something that one of my favorite things about improv, if you haven't seen me improvise, here's what you'll see me do a lot is I come out, I initiate, and I just give a like base reality for me is like tantamount. If there's no base reality, I don't think you have a scene yet. So my big thing is I like to talk for like 20 seconds, my initiation, Hello, welcome to our grand opening of our cafe. I know this used to be a Burger King, but it is now a French cafe. We have a couple of customers lining up, and I just want to say everything's on the house for the first day.
Love that.
So then, like that's how I initiate. That's how most of my scenes go, and I know that that's distinct, and I know that if I initiate 2 or 3 scenes in a row, the audience will be like, "Geez, that guy fucking loves the sound of his own voice."
He's a base reality guy.
Yeah. And when there's like a big team and you see me do that 2 or 3 times, it's like this guy. But if it's like
somebody was like, this guy letting me know where I'm at.
Well, just that it's not what every improviser might expect to see.
Sure.
I acknowledge this, like the way I learned, and we learned this too, is you get to put on 1 brick. Your scene partner, 1 brick. 1 brick. Not me. I'm like, here's 20 bricks, but I did all the hard work. Now I get to sit back and let you all play in this,
I think that's great.
I played it. And I, for certain teams and the teams that I'm on, I think people know that about me. I think people hopefully appreciate that about me. But I know that an audience may not appreciate that. So when there's a smaller group, like 4 or 5 people, I can do that a couple of times and people are like, well, he had to. I got, there's 2 seconds of silence.
He had to do
I
that.
got to 2 Mississippis and no one initiated, so I get it. When there's 8 people or 7 people or whatever, it's just like, geez, I feel like I can only do that like once or twice when it's a big backline.
Sure. Also with 8, I feel the same way, not just about that, but about all things of when there's 8 doing a herald, it's like how I've been in too much. I've been in too much, or I think like I gotta just chill, let everyone else play. And I don't think it's good, because if that's what it is, that's good to do, because it's like, yeah, you're being respectful of everyone and like get everyone in there. But improv should be of the moment and how you're feeling. Like you shouldn't be a hog, but also
shouldn't feel
like
discouraged to do it.
Like, oh, I should give everyone some time. So even though it's a great idea, everyone.
Dennis has been tagging like crazy this set. Like, anybody knows?
I'm sorry. I'm so
Dennis
sorry.
has tagged like 6 times.
I'm sorry.
Right. And yeah, I think with 8 people, it becomes more noticeable. Versus if I see Funk Shuffle tag, I'm like, well, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, they gotta do something.
Yeah, keep tagging, dude.
The other thing too is I saw Herald Night recently, and all I kept thinking was they're both great heralds, but all I kept thinking was there's just not time for everybody. I love everyone on this team, but there's people who are not getting in here. There are people who are not getting to shine in this one. And just because there's 8, there's just so many people. So another reason why I don't love 8-person heralds.
Yeah, but I think in terms of practicality, I think we have to speak to this. 1 or 2 people, 3 people even could leave. Not leave, but like not, be available.
Absolutely. If in the world where not all 8 are coming all the time. Yeah, absolutely.
I think as I get older, I'm starting to realize that that's probably what life is going to be like. You kind of have to.
Life's going to be.
Hey, this is what life looks like.
For shows.
Hey, once you get to 25, like me, at the grizzled age of age 25, you better leave some buffer room, because people got car payments, they got babysitters to call.
They got car payments, and they're going to those instead.
They got mortgages. They got French cafes.
I'm just gonna repeat everything you say.
Yeah. I'm gonna repeat everything you say.
I'm gonna repeat everything you say. Oh no. How do you feel about 8-person herald auditions?
I can't think of another system. Honestly, like, because here's the thing. I think if you ask people to do a 6-person audition, which I would think is probably better for the performer, you're going to get a misread. I mean, you're going to get a misread no matter what. But I guess what I'm trying to say is you want to eliminate as many variables as you can.
Sure. So how do these 6 people play when there's 8?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think there's no. It's fucked. Because you could say that like you play with 8 strangers now. What's like to play with 8 people, and like it also fucks with your head to be like, oh, I did the group game in the audition. Am I fucked? Can I get in on a group game? Like, so that's why I think that no matter what, if you have more, you have less, you have 8, it's gonna fuck with people. It's a fucked up system.
I'm sure this guy is not listening, so it's okay to tell his story. And if he is listening, I'm not talking about you.
Yeah.
One of the callbacks I had once, there was a guy who just did not get into anything. He just stayed on the back line the whole time. Like didn't get it. It was everyone was so aggressive at this callback that this guy just never got in. And then afterwards, we're all walking away and he's like shell shocked. And he was like, I didn't get into anything. and everyone just did their best to be like, yeah, but you were so supportive on the back line and like they know you already and like you could still get on. The year I got on,
and that guy got on,
and that guy's name was Matt Besser. The year I got on, there were 9 people in the audition doing a herald.
Why?
They added someone like
Last minute?
hour before. They're like, "Are you guys okay? This person missed their thing. Then we're gonna throw them into your group." And everyone was like, "What?" But that turned out to be great. Like the 9 people, we were way more patient. It was like you never know what the mix is going to be.
Yeah. I will say like that's unfortunate for that one person, but the way that they do it now, I think they will ask that person to do an additional scene.
I think that's great.
How about this non-herald? But like, why do you think that the magic number for house teams is always 8?
Honestly, I think it's because they want to fill. I think they want to get as many people on as they can. And they want to.
So why not 9 or 10? And some places do 9 or 10.
That's a great question. Wow, I don't know. I've never thought about it because you know what? I never thought about it that way. Maybe it's as far as we can push it before it gets ridiculous. I will say, if you're not doing a herald, I don't mean to just shit on 8-person heralds. So if you're not doing a herald, I've seen two teams recently. That's not true. I've seen one team recently and then another team back in the day, indie teams that had 8 or 9.
Mhm.
And it is a joy to watch we're all in this together of 8 people popping up at the same time to go do a set.
Mhm.
And then they were doing forms where they needed, like they're doing pretty flowers or things where like everyone got it in different ways. So it didn't feel, it can feel having a bigger, I'm not shitting on all 8-person or 9-person teams. I
Yeah.
think it's nice actually in indie terms with different forms to be like, oh, a big group that's all supportive and they're all there.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that kind of covers the gamut of like 8+. We can talk about like that. But one last thing I do want to say, and kind of talking about this topic, is this idea of like teams and starting teams. And I don't, even though I think we've given our thoughts and like pros and cons, I don't want any of this to ever inhibit you or get in the way of you deciding, do we want more or less people?
I'm the other way. I hope it does inhibit you. I hope if you're listening to this, you're now making the choice of like 3 people or nothing.
Yeah, yeah. I think the reason why is because of the logistics that we just talked about. Like you're always going to want to have more people than you need, just for, again, all these different fringe reasons. But I will also say this, and maybe you can agree with me or not. I think it's 10 times easier to start with a big number than it is to like have like a small number and then need to add someone later down the line.
Totally agree. Absolutely. And I also say to your earlier point, I didn't even think about this, but Grimace is an 8-person team.
Mhm.
And what I find that is exactly what you said about what's helpful is like 3 people every time can't do it. So you have 5, but it's always a different 5.
Mhm.
We had a very nice people come up to us and go, who's on this team? Because I feel like it's different every time. And it's like, yeah, I can see that. But it's helpful to have the 8 so you can always have a 5.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is hit up Mia and Dennis. We'll join your team.
We'll join your team.
You need a switch hitter? We're there.
I can do that.
We're available.
Yeah.
Any other closing thoughts about team sizes?
No.
No, we covered everything.
We did it.
We did everything.
What are your closing thoughts on team size?
I think just that idea of it is just like, don't like force yourself like, oh, well, Dennis and David said a team of 3 is perfect, so we got to cut one person from the island. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. I guess what I'm trying to say is like, yeah, embrace how many people show up, but get as many as you can. Improv is better with numbers.
Yeah, I will say I like a bunch of people in the practice, and then you're right about who's going to actually show up for the show, and it helps to have extra in case.
Yeah.
We did it. We solved it.
We did it, everybody. That's been our topic of the week.
Yay.
Team sizes. We're going to go and talk about our jump into our last segment now, which is going to be our hot improv takes.
Ooh.
So this is our chance to give a rant about an improv trend that we want to see more of, less of, or we think is perfect right now. And we want to keep it the same. Do you want to start us off or do you want me to go first?
Would love for you to go first.
Okay, great. Hot improv take. Invite more moms and dads and family members to your improv shows. They are the best improv audiences. I know that they don't understand what's going on. And I know that they probably, they probably want to be doing other more exciting things in LA when they're visiting. I also know that you're probably embarrassed to be like, so yeah, mom, this is what my friends and I do all the time. This is what I spend all that money you've been sending me on, is hanging out with these guys, making stuff up. But whether or not, I don't care what they talk to you about on the ride home, just for that moment, in that moment, it was great for us. It was great for me to have your mom see me do my improv set. So invite more parents to improv shows. That's my hot improv take.
I don't think it's a hot take. I think it's a smart. I think I think they are a great audience. I think it's exciting for them, even though it's like a weird thing to see their kids up on a stage doing a weird thing.
Yeah.
And then absolutely, I feel like if you're in that room and you know there's a parent in there, you're going to not only if you're playing, you're going to give it everything you got.
Mhm.
And then also you're going to try and be as supportive as possible to they got parents. I was at a show recently where somebody's parents came, they let us know. And truly it was like, let's all be as supportive as humanly possible. So the parents think this is cool.
Yeah. I think it is a hot improv take because I'll be, cards on the table. I've never invited my parents to an improv show. They've never seen an improv show, but I know a lot of people have, and I get it too. Like if your parents like flew over here and they want to go to Disneyland or they want to go to they want to go to Universal Studios, like do that instead. But if there's a free night and they're bored, like it works out. I think it's great.
My parents have only I've been here a long time. My parents have only come to California one time from Philadelphia. I'm one of 9 kids. They don't.
Who needs to?
Who needs to?
That's the best city in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Who needs to go to Hollywood, California?
Not when you got the city of brotherly love. You got the
You
Liberty Bell.
got the Liberty Bell. You can freeze at the Liberty Bell. They only came once, and I brought them on stage I brought them to my improv show. I brought them on stage to try and ask them questions to pull from as an opening. And they were just so freaked out they wouldn't talk. It was like the most, but they still talk about like that fun time we did improv. We got to be part of your improv set.
That's so fun too. I love that.
It's so crazy. They would not, they literally, I'd ask them just questions and they'd be like, they just wouldn't talk. It was crazy.
Well, I mean, it goes to show, but this is tough. This is hard stuff.
Absolutely.
It's not natural to sit on stage and answer questions.
Absolutely. But you forget.
Yeah.
You forget. My hot take is not as hot as yours. So
Sure.
You win. I've been seeing a lot of improv, and the thing that I feel like I don't see as much anymore, and again, this could just be me. This could be nobody's trying new stuff. Like there's so few weird improv teams like doing like, I don't remember. There's a team called, I don't know if there's anything. There's like
I'll bleep it out.
Everyone's doing like montages.
Tell me the team and I'll
like
bleep it out.
It's a team called that literally is just doing this weird organic thing. and no, like truly.
I guess I gotta bleep out that too. Huh?
And it's been so long since I don't do it. It used to be like people will be trying something like, what is this? What are we doing? What are they doing? Oh, what is this? And now I do that much less now. I feel like everyone's either doing heralds or at most a pretty flower, but mostly just a montage. But I feel like people used to try like eventes and like, I forget what it's called, but the searcher, just different, people were trying weirder, different forms. And I feel like now I don't see a lot of forms. I see just a lot of like montages.
Slackers is probably at most. I think that speaks to what you were saying earlier about everybody's going through different cycles. And I think everyone is still very much either trying to get a handle on things or they're in the audition cycle because they have like 5 years or 3 years to catch up on.
Sure.
You know, like what sells, right? Like, so if you do have I remember I wanted to do a form called Mortal Kombat.
Love this. I don't even know what this is, but just saying it.
It's an old form. I think Matt Besser invented it. So everybody has a special move just to get Mortal Kombat. So like you're the tagger, you're the justifier, you're the editor or whatever. So you only can do that move.
I love this. And
the idea is that you're gonna get a fucked up show because only one person gets to do these things, right? So but I liked it. I thought it was just really good because it was a good chance to like work on moves that you don't do a lot. And Julie Brister teaches it through Regis. And I told Will, I want to do this. And then it was going to happen. I signed up for it. Not enough people. And then it hasn't come up again since because no one wanted to do it. So I get it,
What do you think that is? I mean, you kind of already spoken to it of like, we're not far enough out of the pandemic cycle where it's like people are still in the want to nail heralds. That's what we're heading toward. We're just still getting our handle versus like we're bored and going to try some stuff.
I think it's also just, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think part of fracturing all the different scenes, I don't think people see enough shows.
I think that's 100% true.
And I think that when they go to see shows, like there's a million shows happening, but people aren't seeing all the different shows. So I think the expectation is, improv is a montage. You know what I mean? Like
that just blew my mind. Improv is a montage.
Like that's the ubiquity of it.
Absolutely.
Because there is no, and I appreciate, that's one thing I like about Funk Shuffle doing all the different like specific shows is that you are giving people a smorgasbord, a sampler plate of different forms. But the unfortunate thing too is, I don't know how, you tell me the truth. What's attendance like for that?
We have 50 to 60,000 a week.
Okay, great.
Which is crazy, but we handle it.
But like if you had like a movie form night where everybody does a movie, are people going to come out for it?
I mean, trying to say this in a nice way. Is there great question. I will also say, and again, I'm not being specific, so I don't think I'm hurting anybody's feelings. What we have found that is very hard. Michael runs Funk Shuffle, by the way.
Yes.
Totally Michael Gardner. Maybe I shouldn't say his name, but a thing we find, we used to, when we first started Funk Shuffle, the show, it was, we're going to give you time to try anything you want, submit it. As long as it's something new that you want to try, we'll put it up. And then it became so few people were submitting things that we had to literally say, okay, this month is this thing. So you just gotta be a team that's willing to do this thing. We'll all do this thing.
When did that shift happen? Or was this up from the beginning?
I'm trying to remember. For the first couple of years, it was submit stuff. And then for a long time, we were we'll decide what it is and just ask you to play.
Mhm.
And then we're trying to go back to the submit stuff. And it's so hard to, I can't tell you how many people will reach out and go, hey, I want to play Funk Shuffle. And you'll go, great. All we need, pick something for your team to do that's like something you guys want to try. It can be literally anything. It can be, here's things that we've done, but something your team wants to try, just submit it and when you can do it. And then they'll be like, oh, well, we do a montage. And you're like, yeah, great. Well, anything else you want to try? Like, if you want to try a hair, you want to, and this, they won't. They'll just submit the team. And it's like, I don't know if people just don't want to try anything or like, I don't know what it is.
Maybe we're wrong. I was gonna say, like, it would be great. We opened our own school, and the school was just non-montages and non-heralds.
And then no one comes because they're like, well, what are we going toward? What am I playing for? Yeah.
I guess we're gonna become a montage team too, then, or montage school.
I guess we'll sell montages.
Yeah. All right, great. That's a great hot take.
Hot take.
I don't
great
think it was.
Take.
I don't think yours was any less hot than mine.
I disagree. I think yours was the hottest take.
I think yours might be the hottest take we've ever had in our life.
Well, I will. Can you think about what you think? No, I shouldn't go there. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? That take was so hot that Conan O'Brien just shoved it in his tongue.
I watched it too.
All right. Last part. I just want you to plug away anything you want to plug.
Yeah. I live on Beechwood. So if you want to stop by Beechwood sometime, corner of Beechwood and Franklin, you can find me there. We'll hang out. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Funk Shuffle has a show every month in the Treehouse. 9:30 is the third Thursday of every month. But truly, that's it. Come. Do you want a bunch of plugs? Do you want a bunch?
No, it's up to you.
Here's what I'll say.
Yeah.
Come to Funk Shuffle. Third Thursday of every month. Treehouse. Grimace is a Herald team that plays some Fridays at the clubhouse for Ouijas. And also some Saturdays for Wii. If you know what any of these things are, good job. If you want to catch an indie movie, shot a super low budget, but I love it. Very proud of it. Super low budget, micro budget film called Paradox Lost. It's free on Prime if you ever want to check that out. But truly the big one is Beechwood. Come on, Beechwood. We'll hang out. It'll be great.
Yeah, go hang out on Beechwood and Franklin.
Beechwood and Franklin.
And I also want to plug, DDC screenwriting.com.
Here's the thing. If you listen to this podcast, go watch Paradox Lost, then come to the Funk Shuffle show. Come watch Grimace at We Are Ouijas, and then take a feature screenwriting class. But truly, it's www.ddcscreenwriting.com. Every once in a while, there's a new class.
You got a movie idea, turn it into 100 pages. That's what I did. 100 pages.
And you don't want to do that alone, come check it out.
Yeah. All right, great.
David, a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for doing this. Appreciate it.
Do you have any plugs?
No, not really.
Come on. What about plug this podcast?
Yeah. The podcast that you're listening to right now, listen again. Actually, I do have something I would like to plug, not for me, but like just something that I did recently. I want to recommend everybody check out a game I played. It's a mobile game. It's also on the browser. It's called A Dark Room. It's a text-based RPG. It's got a beautiful story that really unfolds really well. I played it like 10 years ago, and then I forgot all about it. I just replayed it again this past weekend, and it's a great experience. It'll take you about 3 hours to finish it. And it's a slow burn game. If that's like the best way I can explain it, but it is like it's like those old, like Oregon Trail games. It's all text based, but I promise you by the end of it, you'll be weeping.
What's it called again?
A Dark Room.
A Dark Room.
You can play it's on the web browser or it's a mobile app, but it's great. All right. Thanks so much for stopping by, Dennis.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for very nice to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah. Appreciate it. See you later.
See ya.
That was great. Where are you going? You going to the French cafe over there?
Go to the French cafe.